I recently caught Frances Ha in the cinema, a film that I have long adored, a film which understands the human condition so vividly, and one that will particularly hit for anybody coming to terms with adulthood. On the surface, it is just a profoundly human story about the trials of adulthood, of growing older but not growing up, of trying to remain light and full of love in a world which more and more becomes the opposite. The film follows Frances Halliday, played by Greta Gerwig, a dancer who seems to be lost in life, at least from the outside. She's recently broken up with her boyfriend after not wanting to move in with him, as she plans to renew her lease with her best friend Sophie. After Sophie tells her that she plans to move in with another friend in a place outside of Frances's budget as well, her life begins to spiral. She hops from place to place, loses out on being part of the dance company's Christmas show. She goes to Paris on a whim, but ends up sleeping most of the time. She has to go back to her old university to take a job as an RA to get money. It all seems to be going poorly for Frances, but the endearing thing about the film is her enduring optimism. The film never feels like a woman facing problem after problem because of her attitude towards life. The experience of watching the film isn't one of sadness, of feeling bad for the central character, but rather sharing her optimism and exuberance for life. The film ends with Frances managing to put together a small dance that she choreographed after giving in and taking an admin job at the dance company, and her finally securing her own place. After a series of trials and tribulations, she seems to have landed on her feet, so to say. There's much that could be said about the tone of the film. Writers Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig craft something so singular, it's hard to put into words other than it just feels so deeply real. Baumbach has stated multiple times that he was inspired by the French New Wave, a movement in film which was also marked by a desire to capture authenticity in film. He homages this in the use of black and white, and also the device that the film was shot on, a Canon EOS 5D Mark II DSLR camera, which at the time was a cheap alternative to the cameras that films were shot on. The main takeaway watching this film, I would say, is the mindset of Frances. It's hard not to. It's inspiring, and despite being devoid of colour, Frances stands out like a ray of light, a cacophony of colour. This idea of persistent optimism bleeds its way through the entire script, in literal moments like her reactions to the events which happen to her, but also down to small details like the name of the film itself. It's a tiny detail, but it seems to encapsulate her in an instant. She's not fazed by the issue, she just goes with it. It almost seems comical, emphasized further by the use of ha. It's this pride in just accomplishing something, even if it's not perfect, in constantly moving forward despite the challenges thrown her way, that makes her so compelling. This is totally a valid read of the film, and the feeling that I come back to whenever I watch it. It's hard not to let the love and joy for life displayed on screen wash over you. However, on this rewatch, I was particularly interested in the deep melancholy I found running through the film. It's got nothing to do with what happens to Frances per se. As I mentioned, the way that she reacts to things happening to her is never really negative, but more so how this idea of growing up is conveyed to the audience. I want to take a look at a pair of scenes which seem to bookend the film in sorts. They're kind of the same scene, but they're telling vastly different stories. About 10 minutes into the film, we get this scene between Frances and Sophie talking about their futures.
Tell me the story of us.
Again? All right, Frances. We are going to take over the world.
You'll be this awesomely bitchy publishing mogul.
And you'll be this famous modern dancer, and I'll publish a really expensive book about you.
The D-bags we make fun of will put on their coffee tables.
And we'll co-own a vacation apartment in Paris.
And we'll have lovers.
And no children.
And we'll speak at college graduations.
And honorary degrees.
So many honorary degrees.
The scene itself is such a joyous and hopeful scene. It's a pair of best friends expressing a desire to stay in each other's lives, this shared dream that belongs to them, this life that they want for each other. But the genius in the writing is that it's also lathered with sadness. It's a dream that's not going to come true for them. Well, at least that's what Sophie believes. It's apparent in this scene that Sophie has grown up, or at least is in the process of doing so, first signalled by the way she remarks, again, a feeling that she might be over telling this story. She's abandoned this dream, where Frances hasn't. Tell us the story of us, Frances asks her. She has a degree of apathy for telling the story, but concedes for Frances. I think this scene is Sophie's shadow line, a term which comes from Joseph Conrad's 1917 novella, The Shadow Line. Gerwig has described the shadow line as the moment, often unnoticed until it is in the past, when an individual passes from youth into adulthood. In an interview with The New Yorker, Greta Gerwig explains this idea of what a shadow line is.
The shadow line is it's when you pass these things like the equator or something, and you don't know until it's done. You don't actually know when you're passing through it, and the book is about the shadow line of youth. And I think Frances is passing through it, and she doesn't realize as it's happening, and it's not until it's over that she realized, I passed through the shadow line. That was it.
It's here in this moment that I think Sophie has crossed that shadow line. She's growing up and she's growing away from the shared dream that they had. Real life has caught up to her. The second time we see a similar sort of exchange is towards the end of the film, when Frances has bumped into Sophie at her university job. Sophie gets incredibly drunk and stays over in Frances's room. Sophie, in her drunken state, laments about abandoning the reality of her life, much to the delight of Frances as they begin to talk about this dream life that they will live together, a life that they had dreamed before.
I want to leave Patch and leave Tokyo and come back to New York.
You should.
I'm going to.
I don't know. I could help you. I was gonna say you could live with me, but I don't have a home.
I am going to do it.
Fuck yeah, girl.
I miss my job. I miss old skyscrapers.
Maybe we'll move back to New York at the same time and we'll be like women who rediscover themselves after a divorce.
That's what my mom did.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, I think it'll be great.
We should get apartments close to each other in Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
It's a very similar exchange between them as we saw at the start of the film, except due to her being wasted, Sophie is expressing enthusiasm for their shared dream. Despite moving away from Frances's outlook throughout the film and instead seeking to ground herself in reality, she settles down with her boyfriend, who she wasn't all that interested in to begin with. She abandons her job for him and moves across the world. She talks about getting pregnant and having a miscarriage. In this moment, she's expressing discontent for the life that she chose by dreaming about how her life could have been. In the morning, having come to the sobering reality that she is living, she writes Frances a letter, thanking her for looking after her, but without even an acknowledgement of their conversation that night, goes back to her previous obligations. It's melancholic, and sort of unclear how Sophie feels about this. Is she returning to the life because that's what she truly wants? Or is it her once again succumbing to the pressures of adult life? This scene is immediately followed up by Frances chasing after Sophie, perhaps a symbol of her old life, a life that was colourful and childlike, a life filled with their shared dream. As she chases her down, at a point she stops, looks down, and realises that she has her feet on solid ground. It's odd. The shot of Frances's feet lasts a beat longer than you'd expect. It feels a little out of rhythm with the rest of the film, but this is intentional. I believe this is Frances's shadow line. In following scenes, she begins to grow up. She takes the office job she once neglected, she moves into her own place, she begins to choreograph her own work. But there's specifically a shot that just encapsulates this profound feeling of melancholia so well. Right after the shot of her feet, there's a title card of Frances's new address. This is the framing device the entire film has been using, breaking up the film with the address of the places Frances lives. We get this shot of Gerwig on the train going to work. She is, as we have seen her to be, her cheery self. She has a bright smile on her face, something that would stand out on a morning commute. But for an instant, her happiness fades. She looks down and becomes solemn for just a second. But I think this tiny instant is so telling. Frances is cognizant of crossing her shadow line, of giving in a little to the pressures of adulthood, of dimming her light even just a little. She returns to her happy, cheery smile in a flash right after this brief shake. But to me, this smile says so much more now. Her happiness is an active choice. Despite this feeling of adulthood maybe weighing her down more than it did, she's still choosing to remain happy. It's in that tiny split-second scene that Frances becomes more human, more realised. Up until that point, while her optimism is commendable and something to strive for, it also feels dangerous. As I mentioned, countless things go wrong for Frances. She's faced with many challenges that would provoke some sort of emotional reaction within people, whether that be sadness or rage, but she seems awfully blasé. It could be argued that up until this point, this contending with the realities of adulthood, Frances hasn't really been processing life. She's been coasting through, unaware of the realities that come with growing up. There's a scene early on which seems to support this idea. Frances still believes that Sophie isn't in love with Patch, that she's just with him to be in a relationship. Frances believes this because when they used to live together, Sophie said how she wasn't really into him. But time has passed. Sophie has lived her life, and unbeknownst to her, has fallen in love.
I do love him.
Since when? When did this happen?
It's been happening.
I actually think it could be debated, the validity of Sophie's love, this being backed up by her drunken scene where she says she's going to leave him. But whether she loves him or not, she's decided to move forward with her life, with decisions she has made, decisions Frances doesn't recognize. This is where we start with Frances, and where we are with her most of the film. She was content with her life with Sophie, with dreaming with her, and in a way spends most of the film trying to claw Sophie back from the shadow line. She's clinging to the past. Not only to the past, but ideas of the past too. When she's over at Lev's apartment for dinner, she's the last to leave. At this point in the film, she doesn't live there yet. Everybody leaves at the same time, bar her. She says to the guys that this is the best night she's had since Sophie dumped her. The pair of them representing Sophie in a way, the childlike qualities they possess, this delayed adulthood, and hasn't read the signs of the right time to leave. She's outstayed her welcome. She has clung to something that has moved on. Most of the film is this longing to return to what was comfortable, filling the void Sophie left. When Frances goes on a date with Lev, he isn't a sexual priority, but more so somebody to take Sophie's place. She is, throughout the movie, seeking to return back instead of move forward. She returns home, albeit for the holidays, but interestingly, that scene flies by. It's a montage, highlighting perhaps how comfortable it is to return to the familiar instead of facing new challenges. She tries desperately with multiple people to shape them into Sophie, but fails. She returns to her university towards the end of the film. Even when she goes to Paris, something which could be viewed as this independent adventure, this idea of newness, if you go back to the first scene between her and Sophie and their dreams, they talk about Paris. Her entire life revolves around returning back to the life that she had, and yet in these dream scenes, the scenes where she lays out the life that she wants, that she yearns for, her current way of living is antithetical to this. It's what holds her back, stops her from living. The melancholia that drowns this film is found on two fronts. The sadness of these friends growing apart and realizing that their shared dream is no longer an option for them, but also the placidity of Frances's life, that she has stopped herself from feeling all of life's emotions due to her tunnel vision. The ending of the film, the sequences where she grows up, that little moment on the train, is her reconciling with the idea that paths diverge, and that's just how life is. Poignant it happens on a train. The idea that people will come in and out of your life at different stops. You're not able to control how far the journey is, or how far they will stay on the train with you. After they get off, maybe they will come back on, but to sit and wait for them to come back, for them to be on the same journey as you, is a waste. You'll miss everything else happening on that train. The views, the sights, the hiccups, the miracles. That journey might be hard. It might be filled with stops and turns. But to sit there with a smile on your face is the most radical act of optimism. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like and make sure to subscribe. Frances Ha is one of my favorite movies. I was so happy when I got to see this in a cinema, and I just got so amped up to write something about it. I think this is a movie that if you come back to at different periods in your life, you will get something out of it, and I really hope that this video essay connected with at least somebody. If anybody else has any other readings of this film, I would absolutely love to hear that. And make sure to look out for some videos coming soon. I've got more Oscars stuff, and also my Emerald Fennel video essay will be up at the end of the month, so looking forward to that. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.